Continuing with part 2 of our series on NFP is dog food. The interview that keeps on giving, the one by Christian Wagner, where he interviews Eamonn Clark with the new NFP book, they talk about the Sacred Penitentiary and how it legalized NFP back in the 1800s. Actually, NFP was locked up in the 1800s. We're going to expose that urban myth that everyone goes to and thoroughly debunk it in this video. I'm John Farrell, your NFP spiritual dictator, and this is Annulment Proof.
How are the old folks at home?
You know, there's only so much Jim Skafish I can take. However, I think he didn't win the lottery there on with his life. You know what I'm saying? But I think the thing is something happened with his parents, I guess. Hang on a second. We got to turn it down just a tad. We'll get to the main theme of the song here in a minute. Let's listen for a second. So he's not happy about his family. Cool, got it. All right, 10-4. Listen, yeah, it's been said, you know, if you contracept, it shows, you know, what you don't want your kids, and they find out that that's not what they're about. You were trying to control the situation, have that nice picture like we saw in the first beginning. How is the folks back at home? I'd really like that accent. But I suspect that perhaps his parents were into NFP and they wanted a controlled thing, and this guy, Skafish, was nuts, and I think he came out the wrong way. Anyway, that's my theme there, that there's a lot of anti-family among these kids, and I believe a lot of it has to do with the family planning mentality. We're not interested in the kids. It's not about the kids, and the kids figure it out one way or another. So they sort of go their own way, do their own thing, or kind of rebel, reject. Okay. One thinks of school shootings too. Anyway, let's get to the video at hand. Where is that thing? Hang on a second. Let me push pause here. This may take us 6 months to get through this whole video. There's so much here. So we're just going to talk about one aspect. I'm going to save St. Al for later, I guess. We're going to, oh shoot, this light's killing me, man. So here's what I'm thinking. It's about the Sacred Penitentiary. Everyone says, oh, you know, NFP was legalized by the church way back. So that's what we're going to talk about. I got to turn this light off just a minute. We're going to get back to the facts. Let's listen to what they say.
To the whole thing. So that sort of contextualizes the biology side. And then on the Roman intervention side, you have 3 main interventions from the Sacred Penitentiary, which is now the Apostolic Penitentiary. The first in 1853, basically saying, you know, you don't need to disturb couples who are using marriage in this way. It's for confessors. It's directed for priests hearing confessions.
All right. So this is something you hear all the time. We don't need to disturb couples who are using marriage in this way. So he's implying that they're saying they're using NFP, so it's okay. Everything's cool, right? And of course, Christian Wagner, the youngster with 0 face wrinkles, 24 years old, is kind of like nodding up and down. He's into that. Let's go to our notes here real quick and see what we got regarding this topic. Now, a lot of you guys know Matt Gaspers. Let me make this a little bit bigger. I think you can go like this. Yeah, Matt Gaspers. He used to kind of be my buddy, and he'd be texting me a lot, you know, on Facebook or Twitter. It's like, hey, John, what do you think about this? And then we started kind of arguing about NFP, and he kept bringing up this stuff. You know, listen, in the 1850s, the Sacred Penitentiary okayed NFP. That's it for me. What do you? I'm like, actually, no, that's not what happened. He's like, forget it, dude. We're not talking anymore. You're blocked. Have a nice day. God bless. Whatever. He didn't talk that way, but you know what I mean. So Gaspers is out. That's what happened. Now then, let's look at this question back in 1853. I'll make myself. Let's see if I can do that. Yeah, Okay. It doesn't matter. We'll go like this. Here. Meanwhile, because of the advancement of more precise fertility knowledge, in 1853, the Bishop of Amiens, France, submitted the following question to the Sacred Apostolic Penitentiary, a.k.a. the Holy Office. Can we or can't we do this NFP? So he goes, this is the first question. We've got to nail this down. Like I said, this whole video goes way too long, so we're just going to focus on this topic. We got to get this done. Question: certain married couples, relying on the opinion of learned physicians that are convinced that there are several days each month in which conception cannot occur, are those who use the marriage rite except on those days to be disturbed, especially if they have legitimate reasons for abstaining from the conjugal act. Whether they have legitimate or illegitimate reasons is irrelevant. Can they just use the infertile periods? Of course, the answer is yes. Okay. And so in 1853, the Sacred Penitentiary answers the question. Those spoken of in the request are not to be disturbed, provided they do nothing to impede conception. Correct. There's no obligation to procreate. You do not need to exercise your rights. All right. Oh, and that reminds me, we should probably talk I'm going to write some notes down. Just a minute. Okay, so we're going to talk about precept at the end. All right, so anyway, like I said, in 1853, the penitentiary says, no, if people are going to use their marriage rite at an infertile time, it doesn't make any difference to us. You don't disturb them because there is no obligation to produce babies. They don't have to shoot for the fertile time, blah, blah, blah. All right, so just chill out, leave them alone, don't worry about it. And I wrote in my own notes, obviously this response is not meant to condemn artificial contraception yet endorse NFP, because artificial contraception is not needed when conception cannot occur. So it's like, how could they be saying use NFP but just don't use contraception at the same time? No one's going to do that. Look, in other words, it's not about, as long as you're not trying to impede conception. So it doesn't matter what reason you are using your conjugal act for, as long as it's not to impede conception. That's what they're getting at, in a sense, all right? And it does matter what reason, but as long as you're not trying to impede or avoid conception. That's their point. By the way, when the Sacred Penitentiary says anything, they say as little as humanly possible. They will be extreme lawyers on this. They don't ramble on and say a lot of stuff. They say as few words as possible, which is why some of these pro-NFP people have taken any editorial license they can to run with it. All right. Now, let's go back and finish a little bit of what Eamonn Clark and Christian Wagner are saying.
You don't need to disturb couples who are using marriage this way. Then the 1880 decision, it's a little bit more complicated of a document, but basically it's like, you don't disturb them, and you can even cautiously suggest this to couples who are really struggling with onanism. Okay,
so he's saying, look, we're giving it even more endorsement because whatever he just said. He says, you can go ahead and use it, and then if people are having trouble with onanism, cautiously use NFP. Time out. Let's figure this out, shall we? Let's go back to the notes. Let's look at what the Sacred Penitentiary says. In the 1853 decision, I think it's about as big as we're going to make it. In the 1880 decision, this is what he's referring to, right? So another priest starts asking the Sacred Penitentiary questions. By the way, Father Ripperger says, don't ask the Holy Office any questions today because you're going to get crazy answers and it just makes everything worse. I remember I bugged the bishops so much. One bishop asked the Rome, they said, hey, do you need the bishop's permission to divorce? And then they totally blew that out. And the answer was, heck no, this is nuts. It's another story. That was Cardinal Coco Palmerio. Now, Father LeConte submitted the question in 1880, which is what Eamonn Clark from the NFP book was talking about. Whether married couples may have intercourse during such sterile periods without committing mortal or venial sin. Whether the confessor may suggest such a procedure either to the wife who detests onanism or to her husband who but cannot correct him, or to the spouse who shrinks from having numerous children. So they up the ante. These people are trying to get NFP more over the finish line. They're trying to kind of say, come on, kind of endorse it. Kind of like if you're asking your parents for something. Can I go out for a little while? You don't say, can I stay out till 5 a.m. and steal your car and do a bunch of drugs? You don't come out and say that. So you say, can I step out for a little while? And if they say yes, you just take an inch and, take a mile, giving it. So this is what they're saying. What about, can I not correct him but either spouse who shrinks from having numerous children? So can we use NFP without any sin, especially if we don't want a bunch of kids? What did the church say to that 1880 question? Married couples who use their marriage right in the aforesaid manner, okay, so they are doing what they're just using the marriage right during infertile periods only. Doesn't say why, just says that's what they're doing. Calendar has 30 days. They're picking out some infertile days. You are not to disturb them. And the confessor may suggest the opinion in question. Okay, so cautiously, however, to those married people whom he has tried in vain by other means to dissuade from the detestable crime of onanism. Okay, so the opinion in question is the science of NFP, okay? You may suggest the new science of NFP if you got someone who doesn't want to have kids and they got onanism going on. So you want to avoid the onanism. NFP is, you can argue, a lesser sin. So this is why you can allow a little NFP, but it's only as a lesser sin than onanism, all right? What did I write? Okay, so there is no sin in having marital relations during known infertile periods, provided conception is not avoided deliberately. That's right. So, because you have to pursue procreation. The response does not permit NFP for spouses who shrink from having numerous children, but only for the sin of onanism. Notice, like I said, the Sacred Penitentiary they're tight-lipped. They don't blab on and on. They say as few words as humanly possible to answer the question legally. So they didn't even talk about, hey, I don't want to have a bunch of kids. They just said, hey, if you got an onan problem, you can cautiously suggest the NFP thing, okay? Because onanism is sinful. However, the reason why you need to be cautious about it is because NFP is also sinful. They don't say that, but because they never said, without committing mortal venial sin. So let's see. The response is silent on NFP due to the use of avoiding children. Default back to 1880, provided they do nothing to impede conception. Let's go to a picture real quick while I'm thinking of it. Let me see if I can find it. Where is it down? Oh, yeah, this one. This is good. So here is the NFP rhythm meter right here. Dig it? Let's make it real bigger so you can see it. Also known as Planned Parenthood. This is before the word Planned Parenthood existed. The NFP rhythm people had called it Planned Parenthood. Nature's rhythm method is Planned Parenthood. What's new? Nothing new under the sun. Planned Parenthood today still recommends nature's rhythm method on their website right now. So you have Patrick Joseph Cardinal Hayes of New York, 1920. He's like, this NFP thing. It's a little bit of a nuanced gig. It's a delicate topic, so you have to be careful of how it's spoken about. This is why people have just taken it and run with it, and no one wants to get in the way or be the bad cop. There's so much modernism out there. Everyone's like, hey, if we can just stop them from contracepting artificially, we'll call it a win. No, the family is dead when you keep allowing any family planning, which I've already discussed in other videos. So what does Cardinal Hayes say? Instead of being freely taught and commended, okay, like NFP is natural and good and groovy and bonding and all this crazy stuff, it is rather to be tolerated. Why do you only tolerate as an extreme remedy or means of preventing sin? Why should we only tolerate NFP? How come? The answer is because increase and multiply is nature. That's why. So when you start doing the rhythm method to avoid nature, that is overturning the hierarchy of ends. Cool? Of course it is. So when you do that, it's a sin of its own. All right. So, but onanism is just nasty stuff. It's pretty obviously sinful, but NFP is a little more subtle, which is why I think it's Casti 108 says this, the art of sinning in a subtle way. NFP. Okay. It looks normal. It looks really natural. Dude, no, it's sin. All right. So there's that. That's politically incorrect for sure. But let's go back to where we were, and then we'll go back to the video. Hang on, y'all. All righty. There's no sin, blah, 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 blah. Okay. The second part of the response, which supports NFP only, allows it in the case of onanism, and the confessor may suggest the opinion in question cautiously, however, to those married people whom he has tried in vain by other means to dissuade from the detestable crime of onanism. Yes, the only permitted use of NFP, according to this response, would be if the husband obstinately commits the sin of onanism. So, yeah, that's so weird. Okay, so someone doesn't want to get pregnant, so he's resorting to onanism. God. No. Like I said, this is going to get a little bit, we got to get into to gloss over this. Everyone loves to just say, hey, NFP was approved in the 1800s, so get the heck out. Well, we're going to go back and correct the record on this. Okay, if not, the confessor cannot even suggest the use of NFP. Yeah. So if you got a husband who's sinning for onanism, then maybe you could allow the NFP because it is a lesser sin, okay? But if your husband has a problem with onanism, you can't allow NFP. Susie Q, I'm making a video. You're going to have to chill out, all right? This is articulated in Casti Connubii 59. Oh, yeah. Holy Church knows well that not infrequently one of the parties is sinned against rather than sinning. When for a grave cause, he or she reluctantly, okay, so grave cause, all right? So that grave cause is, we don't want to have any kids. My husband can't keep it together, and he's into onanism, and that's like freaky freak, all right? So there's our grave cause. What are we going to do? You can reluctantly allow the perversion of the right order, okay? Secondary end over primary. That's the perversion of the right order is the pursuit of secondary ends independent of the primary. We want the conjugal act, and we don't want the baby. That's the perversion of the right order. That's all any family planning is. In such a case, there is no sin of the spouse who is tolerating it, provided that mindful of the law of charity, he or she does not neglect to dissuade the partner and deter him from sin. Okay, so in other words, you can cooperate with the perversion of the right order, but you have to explain to them that this is a sin. So his sin is onanism. Her sin is NFP. Number 59 is not referring to the artificial contraception as decreed by the Sacred Penitentiary in 1916. That's true, and we'll get into that in a minute. There's so much here. Sorry, it's like in the weeds a little bit. We got to get through this. I'm telling you, for the record. Otherwise, everyone wants their NFP. Everyone says, like Matt Gaspers, they approved it in 1880. Game over. No more discussion. I'm going to get back to this. Let's go to the video a second. Okay, where are we? Here we are.
Okay, withdrawal. Okay, for contraception. So it was a little bit more progressive. Mm-hmm. And I have the notes for that consultation. I'll publish those at some point in the near future. And then finally, you get the 1932 intervention. And the 1932 one is basically the one that it says, look back at the 1880 intervention. But the DM was asking, like, is it licit in itself to use this? Because you could see, like, well, maybe it's saying you can suggest a lesser evil, and not necessarily saying, no, it's okay in and of itself.
So he's saying that after all these decisions in the 1800s, by 1932 or whatever, we still need more confirmation. We still need to hit NFP out of the park because, like he said, is it just the lesser evil or what? Like Cardinal Hayes said, okay? And so you have different bishops still at that time saying NFP is trash, it's Planned Parenthood, it's not increasing and multiplying. All right, so let's listen.
Or is licit per accidens. It's made licit by the right kind of circumstances and intention. But in and of itself, it's not morally problematic. And essentially the 1932 dubium, in the way that it says, look at the 1880 response, says, yes, it's morally licit in and of itself.
Okay, so this is total eisegetical reading. I learned that word from Dr. Ed Peters. They're just tripling down on their desire to make NFP legal. They're saying, oh, yeah, look, they said just whatever 1880 said. Let's look at what they did say. We have to go through these notes. Sorry, it's got to get nerdy. We just got to do this. Just got to do it. Now, so that we don't digress too much, okay, we're going to focus on this 1916 decision in here from the Sacred Penitentiary, okay, and how it affects the vademecum for use of confessors in 1997. So basically what they're saying is NFP can be is a tolerated sin, but artificial contraception can never be tolerated. This is what the church teaches, but nobody says that today. No one's allowed to say that. Everyone freaks out. Let's look at what it says. So 1997 vademecum says, okay, special difficulties are presented in cases cooperation for the sin of a spouse who voluntarily renders the conjugal act sterile. Okay, so if you voluntarily render the conjugal act sterile, they like to say unitive act because that's newspeak, okay? In the first place, it is necessary to distinguish cooperation in the proper sense from violence or unjust imposition on the part of one of the spouses, which the other spouse, in fact, cannot resist. Yes, so they have footnotes, and we're going to get to those in a minute. This cooperation with family planning can be licit, all right? You, as an innocent spouse, can cooperate with family planning when 3 following conditions are jointly met. What are those 3? Let's see if we can make this even bigger. What are those 3? Number 1, when the action of the cooperating spouse is not when the action of the cooperating spouse is not already illicit itself, and then it footnotes to 47. So the actions which are already illicit are the artificial. Okay, anything artificial when you use an instrument. This 47 footnotes back to these 1880 penitentiary decisions and the 1916 decision. The 1916 decision says you may never cooperate with anyone who's using artificial contraception. You need to fight them off as an attacker would be attacking a virgin. She needs to fight them off because that action is already illicit, meaning it's illicit right out of the gate. From the start, it's artificial, it's illicit, can't do it, can't cooperate. When the proportionally grave reasons exist for cooperating with the sin of the other. Okay, yeah, when the proportionally grave reason exists for cooperating in the sin of the other spouse. So like they said, there's like they said in the 1800s, if your spouse doesn't want to have kids and they're into onanism, that's a grave reason, all right? So you can cooperate. It's a lesser sin, the NFP, but it's still mortal sin because you're overturning the hierarchy of events. You are telling God, we are not going to increase and multiply. We're using the Increase and Multiply Act to not do that, which is a violation of nature. Grave sin, can't do that. However, it's not NFP and onanism are not already illicit because they start licit. They start natural. They just end unnatural and illicit, okay? So anything that's artificial, as in with an instrument, you cannot ever cooperate. But you can cooperate with what is not already illicit, but becomes illicit. Onan, or his onan, or her onan. Her onan is NFP. Okay? You can cooperate. And these penitentiary says this because people get in there and they ask these weirdo little questions because people got to know. Okay? And we're going to read that in a second. So they go to the footnote 47, Denziger and whoever the heck that is, German, Schonmetzer. Okay, these footnotes right here, all these footnotes go back to the Sacred Penitentiary, 1800, and 1916 and all this stuff. That's what this is. So this is kind of buried. It's all Catholic, but it's not front page news. It's buried in section Q 977, and the printer and the ink ran out and they never showed it to anybody. This kind of stuff, okay? You can't cooperate with artificial contraception. If your spouse is using artificial contraception, no relations. If your spouse gets a vasectomy, no relations. Nope. Can't cooperate with it. It's immediately illicit, already illicit. But you can cooperate with the sin of something which is not already illicit, namely NFP or onan. Okay, like I said, NFP onanism is not already illicit like artificial contraception is, so it can be tolerated initially but not rejected as sin finally. Footnote 47 is to the Sacred Penitentiary rulings above. That's what I just said. There can be no cooperation with sin of artificial contraception. There can be cooperation with the sin of NFP. Yes, yes, yes. That's the only way to make sense of Casti 59. All right? So, by the way, y'all, let's go to this real quick. We'll skip back and let's just go to this. This is what they said in 1916. Is the woman held to positive resistance in the case where the practice of onanism, the husband wishes to use an instrument? That's legal description code for artificial contraception. Okay, so onanism is contraception, but he's using an instrument. So like barrier method, whatever. Is she held to positive resistance? All right. Is she allowed to cooperate with somebody who uses an instrument? Science, artificial. What is the answer? Affirmative. She must have positive resistance. She cannot cooperate. She is held to positive resistance if he's using artificial. Okay, same with the man. If she wants to use artificial, you have to positively resist. You cannot cooperate with that. Dig it. Okay, so they drill down further because, like, we're here now. We better ask this question, all right? We don't want to disappoint Christopher West later, although he doesn't pay attention to this stuff. So that this whole matter might be developed and taught in a safer manner, must the man using such instruments be truly compared to an oppressor to whom the woman must oppose that resistance a virgin puts up to attack her? Yes. Alrighty then. All right. Yes. Affirmative. She must oppose. That's why when you go to the Vademecum for Confessors in 1917, you can cooperate with the sin of the spouse as long as it's not already illicit. So all these things of family planning are illicit, but some are already illicit and some are not already illicit. You can never cooperate with something that's artificial, but you can cooperate with something that is, quote, natural. But it's a sin either way. All right. To affirmative responses, says blah, blah, blah. Holy Office, the second response to the Holy Office, 1853, the intrinsic unlawfulness of the wife is not permitted to be knowingly passive during condomistic intercourse. That's right. You cannot cooperate with condomistic intercourse. All right? Remember that. Goes further in affirming explicitly that positive resistance. Yes, so we're hammering this really hard. Okay, on the part of the wife, husband wishes to commit onanism, instrument, be effectively condomistic intercourse. The affirmative response demands, in order that the whole matter may be developed and taught more safely. Okay, yeah. All right, got that. All right, good. So where did I get these words? I got these words from this super long, mega nerd paper, The Vademecum and Cooperation in Condomistic Intercourse. Joe Arias and Father Basil Cole. All right. Now, I have talked to these guys as much as I can. As much as they will. I've emailed them, try to get through to them. Very reluctantly, but they did pipe up. Joseph, I said, look, you guys, you are saying you can never cooperate with artificial, but you can cooperate with that which is not already intrinsic, which is not already illicit. So let's go to Casti 59, right, buddy? So I'm talking to these guys. I'm like, look, you are the only ones who are coming out and saying it's not. You can't. Shoot, where's Casti 59? Where is it? Doggone it. Hang on. All right. Let me push pause and get it just a minute. All right, I found it. Holy Church knows well that not infrequently one of the parties is sinned against rather than sinning. When for a grave cause, he or she reluctantly allows the perversion of the right order. So I'm going, all right. You can reluctantly allow the perversion of the right order. In such case, there is no sin, provided that, mindful of the law of charity, he or she does not neglect to seek to dissuade the other, deter the partner from sin. So I asked those two guys, Arias, Joe Arias and Father Cole, what is her sin? Since we cannot cooperate with the artificial, what sin can we cooperate? And they won't answer the question because the only answer is NFP. They'll say, oh, yeah, it's she can try to rinse out the seed. No, that has zero effect. That's not the answer. The only answer that's the not already illicit, that's a sin, that the innocent spouse can cooperate with is NFP. So NFP is sin per Casti 59 right there. Oh boy, we can't do anything about that now. We better not talk about it at all. That's where we're at, which is why I'm making the video. Let's go back to where we were. Let's just go back to the video. No. Let's hang on. Let me see where I'm at. All right, I had to go make coffee. My voice is going out. And anyway, let's go back to the video and pick up where we left off, see what he's got to say.
So that's sort of the background for the Roman interventions as positive interventions on the question. So definitely not something coming out of Paul VI.
All right. So he was talking about the 1932 decision. That's it. All right. So let's check that out. The 1932 decision. Let's see if we can find that. Here it is. Okay. Sacred Penitentiary. We're putting NFP in the penitentiary. That's where it belongs, but they're trying to get it out, all right? So they're coming back after Casti Connubii. They're like, dude, we still haven't quite got a ringing endorsement of our NFP. Come on, Casti Connubii, what's up? All right. Yet again, issued in a statement on periodic continence. Periodic continence is a misnomer. It's not periodic continence, it's periodic incontinence. Dated July 20th, 1932, regarding the exclusive use of the infertile period. So they ramped up the verbiage that much more. Question: when the practice is licit by itself, for which spouses who wished, I'm going to shorten this to make it easier, okay? Is it licit for spouses who wish to avoid offspring, abstain, except on those days when conception is impossible? So, is it licit for spouse? Because we still don't know, okay? All this stuff about, oh no, NFP was totally endorsed in 1880. Everyone knows it. It's supernatural. It's totally natural. It's great. NFP is super good. No problems. No. They still don't know. After Casti Connubii, that's why they're coming back in 1932, asking the questions. Please help us out, man, because we're saying this is natural. And everyone's like, no. You got Cardinal Hayes. You got a bunch of different bishops saying, forget this. This is kind of like today with gay marriage or blessings or James Martin stuff. You got half the priests in the country going, woohoo, James Martin, he's freaking cool. Everything, Father James Martin, and like homo this. We need to, so they're trying to get their homo stuff over the finish line. Okay, their NFP stuff. So, spouses who wish to avoid babies. So if you want to avoid babies, you abstain from the conjugal act except during the infertile periods. All right. So we're not doing it for good reasons. We're just not abstaining. We are doing it not for onan. Okay. We're not doing it for the sake of onan. We want to know, can we do NFP here for one reason, and that reason is because we don't want the frickin' babies, all right? We want the conjugal act, the horse and mule, and we don't want the babies. Is that cool? Is that licit? Meaning, is it natural? Can we do it? And what does the Sacred Penitentiary say to that question? We already answered you in 1880, buddy, okay? So go back to 1880. The answer is no, because they wish to avoid offspring. If that's what you're trying to do, you can't pursue the infertile periods only, because procreation is primary. Game over, end of story. Bye-bye NFP. It needs to be in the penitentiary and stay there, like the NFP dog stuff, all right? That's where it belongs, because it started in 1880 when people started bringing this up. Can we do the deal? Can we use the rhythm method and all this kind of stuff? Not if you're trying to avoid babies, no, but only to avoid. It can be tolerated, like we said in Castile 59, if you're trying to prevent a worse sin, which is onanism. It's a sin in itself, as Castile 59 says. Anyone thinks I'm wrong about this? You think I got anything wrong? Come right on out in the comments section, cool, of this video. We'll hash it out. No problem. That's the difference between me and everyone else out there that I can find. I will talk to you as long as you want in the comment section, as long as you want. By the way, let's take care of a few. I got some more stuff to talk about, but while we're thinking of it, while I'm thinking of it, let me find a picture. Just a minute here. This guy looks pretty cool, if you ask me. I like his suit, all right? Listen, I'm a custom tailor, all right? Some of you don't know that, but that's Feral Apparel. I've been making suits since 1990. If you want any suits, if you want shirts, I don't need money. I'm doing okay, all right? I'm not here to try to make money, but it's hard to get downtown Seattle like it used to be. The traffic's stupid. COVID messed everything up. I used to go downtown and sell suits every day for years. It's just not like it was. So I could do it remotely. And I thought, I'll give all you guys like the Screaming Catholic discount. If you want custom suits, anything, any color, I don't care what it, I know what I'm doing. And there's a line I use sometimes. Why did God create Protestants? Because somebody has to pay retail. So I'm going to give you guys the in-house mega discount, and we'll figure out your measurements, no problem. I'll make you suits. You know, the general retail price is about $1,100, something like that. So we can work on that for sure. But you get high-end stuff. It's made in H. Freeman in Baltimore. It's hand done. I've got shirts in New Jersey. They don't shrink. And we'll get you nailed down, all right? On fit, you'll love it. You're buying a feeling. So if you guys want any suits, any of you guys want to look skinnier, any of you have weird shoulders, whatever, say no more. I know what I'm doing. I can measure you just by looking at you, okay? So there's that little bit. Let's watch.
A dog can get mighty hungry when he doesn't get his chuck wagon. Because dogs love the soft, meat-like chunks, the brown, crunchy bits, the rich broth chuck wagon makes when you add warm water.
Yep.
Serve your dog chuck wagon. Chances are he's already waiting for it.
That's why I was saying this NFP is like the dog food. You can put water in it or you can not. Which reminds me, I'll get to the next. Let's drive this point home a little bit.
Hi, honey. What's for dinner? I'm starved.
Gravy train.
Gravy train? After all these years, you know I like my food dry.
Relax, George. My sister told me you can serve meaty tasting gravy train dry, the way you like it, or mixed with water to make gravy the way I like it.
See, either way, you can have. So you can have your dog food to make babies, or you can have your dog food the way she likes it to not make babies. Either way is cool now.
Meaty tasting and completely nutritious either way.
It is delicious, crunchy dry.
It's delicious with its gravy, too.
Everyone's getting along.
Trained dog food. Tastes good with gravy, tastes good without.
Yep, like the conjugal act. You can have the conjugal act with procreation or without now. We'll give you whatever you want. It's perfect. What could go wrong? Hello? Okay, Bruce Jenner for starters. All right, now let's go back to the video and get our bearings again. All right, here. Got it? All right, cool. Let's see what we got. Whoops. Let's go like this. Hit it.
And the main drafter of the consultation for the 1880 decision was by then Father, later Cardinal Steinhuber, who was one of the main ghostwriters for Pascendi, the big anti-modernist encyclical. So it's just a complete misunderstanding, not only of modernism, but also the history of this topic, to say NFP is modernist.
All right. So he's saying, look, we're going to assert that NFP is natural, and everyone has said so since 1880, 1853, whatever. And by the way, this is the guys who were in on this, who understood this, were the writers of Pascendi with Pius X. So therefore, it's super, super conservative and it can't be monitored. No, the NFP people will do this. They'll say, look, all these Pope Leo XIII and all these guys, really conservative guys, endorsed NFP. No, they did not. And just because so-and-so was a pope at that time doesn't make the assertion that NFP is natural and licit correct. Anyway, they're trying to gaslight big time. And of course, Wagner is just eating it up because he likes NFP, and if he were to come out against it, I think his career would be like dead. I think he's like a pro. He's a Catholic Inc. kind of guy. He makes money on YouTube. Oh, that reminds me. We got to check this out. Hold on a minute. Here. Okay, hit it.
Debating Jay Dyer or Brother Diamond. I just have an issue with debating in general. I mean, I've had 2 debates, and people said that I did really well, but I just don't really like debating. I just don't think it's an ideal circumstance. Look, if you don't like something that I said, I laid something carefully. I'll just make a video against it. Like, you don't need to have a live debate in order to respond to something that I said. Just make a video on it, edit a video, and if I think it's a good response and there's salient points that I need to refute what you said, then I'll make a video responding to your video.
Good. Okay. Here I go. I made several. I made a couple. This is number 2, about in response to what you're saying, Christian Wagner. No one else is making this. You got to tell me why what I'm saying is not salient. You don't have to. I think what you're going to do is ignore the whole thing, but hopefully you won't. I tend to agree that debates get kind of crazy because it's like trying to think on your feet and get a bunch of technical, contentious stuff nailed down perfectly like AI. It's pretty tricky. So I kind of like what he said there. So I think making an accurate response video is a great idea, which is what I'm doing, laying out the red carpet for Christian Wagner. I hope he does respond or come up with something to overturn what I have or overthrow what I have said. So let's go back to this video, the main video, and see if we got anything else.
Hey everyone, I wanted to tell you about one of the best deals we have.
So that's sort of the brief history of the question from the Roman perspective outside of the encyclicals.
Mm-hmm. So what happens after the 1932 intervention?
Okay, so that's where we stop on this video. We're going to talk about what happens after the 1932 intervention. And the 1932 intervention put the nail in the coffin and put NFP back in the penitentiary. They tried to get it out as best they could. Let's go back to our notes and see if there's anything I got to clean up on the notes. All right. Hang on. Let's see what we got. Now, okay, did I get through everything on these? I believe the answer is yes, and I'm going to wait for your questions. Of course, if you think I missed something, got something wrong, unlike the Catholic hippie, religious hippie, whatever she is, and everybody else who promotes NFP, I'll be here to pick up the pieces and talk, rather than saying, you're just not worth you can't handle it. You're too blah, blah, this, that, and the other. I just can't talk to you. Nope. Be, like Yoda says, shall not you be? Yes. Okay. Now then, we got through most of this. Oh, okay. We got through that. Oh, here we go. Last thing. Is it a precept? And that's what I was talking about in the last video. Is increase and multiply a precept? And Christian Wagner is betting the farm on that it is a precept. You have to increase and multiply. That's what he's saying. Let's look at what St. Thomas Aquinas says since he's the Walmart Thomist. Okay, Christian Wagner, you just, like I say, you know what you're talking about. You're Mr. Aquinas, so let's hear some correction, please. Now, he says the question, does matrimony still come under a precept? Okay. So the question is not, is increase and multiply a precept, but does matrimony come under a precept? And the reason why matrimony would is because increase and multiply is a precept. You've got to increase and multiply, right? That's the reason why matrimony would come under it, all right? Because everyone knows it's nature, but is it still a precept? Do you have to increase and multiply? Au contraire, he says, it is written in Corinthians 7:38 that he that giveth not his virgin in marriage doth better. All right, so listen. Therefore, the contract of marriage is now not now a matter of precept. Okay, so they're saying that, look, the Bible says it's better to be a virgin than to be married. You know, you're better off. Okay, it's a higher state. Yes, so it is not a precept. I could read all of Aquinas, but it's going to take too long, so I'm not going to. I'm just going to include it in the show notes. The contract of marriage, it is a contract. Sorry, Father Mike Schmitz. It's a contract for bodily rights. That's what it is. No good of the spouses. It's not the institution of the good of the spouses that NFP relies on. The contract of marriage is not now a matter of precept. This is because we don't need to fill the earth because it's already, quote, filled, all right? But back in the day, 5,000 years ago, everyone had to get married. Everybody. And have a bunch of wives to make a bunch of freaking kids. All right, let's see. So, again, there's a lot in there, but I'm just going to go to what I highlighted in yellow. Reply to objection 1. This precept has not been recalled. Okay, so people say, wait a minute. The precept to increase and multiply has not been recalled. It is a precept then, right? Yes and no. It's a precept, but it is not binding on each individual for the reason given above, because you can do a lot of different things and you could become a priest or so it's a Protestant deal, like the Douay Rheims and the Haydock commentary say. It's Protestant to say increase and multiply is a precept because all those guys got to get married, right? So it's anti-celibacy is where that's coming from. It is not binding on each individual for the reason given above, except at that time when the paucity of men required each one to take himself the begetting of children. So if you're going to beget children, you got to get married. In other words, everyone had to get married when there wasn't enough people. Okay, I think that's it. Anyone want to try to? You got more to say about that? No problem. In the comment section. But I think that's going to wrap it up for there. This whole notion of the Sacred Penitentiary okaying NFP is urban legend. It's not true. I went through the notes as to why. That should cover it. But like I said, if you think I'm all wet, don't be shy. So like I was saying, if you really feel you want to clean up your act and get a nice custom suit or shirts and all that, don't be shy. Just leave a comment in the comment section you want a suit, and I will get in touch with you. It'll be cool. All right? Just remember, if you're not opposed to NFP, you're not on the team, so go out there and stay toxic. I'm going to leave you with a little late 70s / early MGTOW vibe.